Sounds good.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide, Volume 3. And today I have the lovely Lumen with us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Saskia?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm Lewamm. Most people in nightlife call me Lou. I am a nightlife advocate. I'm an awareness and diversity coach, and I'm part of the executive board of the Berlin ClubCommission. And in that capacity, I've started a project called the Awareness Academy, which helps club culture particularly, and I run my own consultancy. I'm
Fantastic.
based I'm based in Berlin. Sorry for interrupting. I'm based in Berlin and I'm of Eritrean heritage. It's in East
Wow.
Africa.
So, how's
Yeah.
that been coming from Eritrea and going to Germany to pursue your career? How have you found that?
I mean, to be fair, like I was born and raised in Germany,
Yeah.
but I mean, being born to African parents in Germany as immigrants, their idea of career is so different to what I chose to have as a career, right?
Yeah.
Like being in music and entertainment for starters. I mean, I feel like a lot of people can relate. My parents thought I might become a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, right? So choosing music was a bit of an odd choice for them. It took them some time to adjust. And then also, I actually quit my really secure, stable job in an international organization to pursue my own consultancy. And I think that was another big one for them. But overall, like it's nice. Like I feel like we have an understanding and we share, like I'm very happy that they've taken the time to give me like a lot of values, and I feel like this integrity is kind of shown in a lot of the things that I do today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Very.
really good point. And like, did you find it hard to go from something that was really stable and secure to going into an industry where it's not as secure and stable? Did you find that a bit hard as well, that transition?
I wouldn't say it was particularly hard. I mean, in all fairness, like I started my career on the side, right? So I was in hospitality and nightlife, bartending and working the door and producing events. And then I had a feeling, oh my God, I need to do something in hyphen normal. Like
Yeah.
I need to get a proper job.
Yeah.
And so I did, right? And I enjoyed it and I excelled at it. But I never really stopped or disconnected from the work in nightlife. Maybe I stopped working in a bar, but I continued to produce events. And so I felt like it gave me a lot of confidence seeing how I could build my knowledge and career while having a 9 to 5 career as well.
Yeah.
And then doing that like jump in the end wasn't that big of a deal. I never thought I was gonna be like quitting and just do it. I always thought, yeah, I'm gonna keep it as a part-time thing, security over everything. But
Yeah.
ultimately, what does security even mean? And I think that's also such a big question in the work I do regarding awareness. Like, how do you actually feel safe, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm really
Wow.
happy. Yeah.
It's really inspirational. Thank you for sharing that with us. And how long has
Yeah.
it taken you to get to where you are right now? Like, how long's your journey been? And obviously, you've done different roles. So, do you want to share those with us as well, like your different roles and how long it's taken you to get to where you are now?
Mm. Yeah, sure. I consider the start of my career around 16, 17 when it comes to night economy, I guess, or
Yeah.
music industry, because I did start out as hostess and waitress, and I was like 17, 18 and moved to working in clubs and then moved to working the door and continued to working different jobs like like high-end restaurants in Berlin, etc. I was really drawn to kind of that service aspect of music industry and hospitality industry. And for the longest time I thought of it as a side project, really, like some means to get money while I was studying, etc. And I think the moment that it shifted for me personally was moving to Berlin, because what changed here was the surrounding. People actually were really accepting of aspirations in hospitality or aspirations in right? So
Yeah.
coming from a place where people were like, you need a proper job, you need a
Yeah.
9 to 5, and then being here working nightlife and people being like so accepting of that as my career, it did change my perspective, you know, and it also allowed me to, something that has been on my mind since I was 18 was to produce an event. I actually tried when I was 18 and I
Yeah.
failed. And I never tried again for the longest time, right? So I picked it back up when I was like 25, 26 in Berlin, I would say. And people were really accepting. People were really encouraging. I didn't know so many people, but the ones that I knew, they were coming, they were doing odd jobs, some were DJing, etc.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a time of us, like all of us kind of, you know, paving our way and just trying things out and being supportive of each other. And I'm like super happy to see, like, not only have I gone on to become an advocate, like, because when I started producing, I had like questions, you know, right, around awareness, around security, around diversity. And I asked them in different settings, and then eventually came across the ClubCommission, which is this industry advocacy, a lobbying group, basically, that you know, lobbies between the city of Berlin and the clubs and venues here, all the stakeholders of nightlife, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then with these questions, I guess people thought that it was important that somebody asked them internally. So I got elected on the board,
Oh,
and yeah, and from there it was just like, I don't know, it just came very naturally. I feel like I started working as an advocate in my real daytime job, like I was a political campaign strategist, and then I also started advocating for nightlife, and it seemed to become, or no, not seem to become, but I didn't know that I had a knack for advocacy, more so maybe than having a knack for music industry particularly. It just happened to be like the intersection that I like, but
yes.
if in 10 years I would think I want to advocate for animal rights, I don't think that would be a problem, you know?
Yeah, well, I think
So,
it's also it's about supporting others and community, isn't it? It's not just
yeah,
about
exactly.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
I think
amazing.
these are the biggest, or like the key turning points of career, um, are like how it unfolded really. And
And how some of that works interlinked as well. Like you might not have realized it at the time, but it all kind of connects alongside each other, doesn't it? It
it
works.
does, it does. You know, and the funny part is, like, I think one of the mancos of Germany, I would say, is that there is a sense of, they have a saying, you need to focus on one wedding at a time. And
Yeah.
it means like you should stay in your lane. Like if you pick, let's say, engineering, or in my case, hospitality, you should stick to hospitality and not aspire to become an advocate or whatever.
Mm.
And like, because they just don't believe in multitasking like that. And um I kind of rebelled in a way, like, you know, having the 9 to 5 and then producing events and being so like engaged in advocacy at the same time is quite insane, to be honest. But at the same
I
time, like, I'm
feel
so
that.
happy I did it.
Yeah.
It actually gives me joy, right? And it ended up being my sauce, what I call my sauce. It's very dear to my heart, and yeah, I'm very
It's your
happy that,
passion, isn't it? You
yeah,
can clearly
exactly.
see that. Yeah, you can clearly see that. So with your kind of passion and stuff, did you have a musical education or did you just come into the industry with the knowledge and the skills that you'd learned?
I came into the industry with the knowledge and the skills that I learned, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I remember finishing school and thinking, oh, I want to go into event management
Yeah.
or music business. But at the time, I didn't feel like there were enough like study courses that were government funded.
Yeah.
It was all private. So I did consider going to a private school, taking out a loan, etc. I happened to decide against it, and went more into business and, you know, education wise. I never finished my degree, actually. I quit it
Yeah.
close to the end, and, you know, just jumped into exploring. And as, again, like being in Berlin freshly, I did go out a lot. I met people in the industry. I met some artists, and I started trying out as artist manager,
Yeah.
and it helped, you know, it helped my networking skills. And then it, even though I didn't fully go into artist management, it just helped shape, you know, my career in a sense, because yeah, by doing different things like producing events, etc., I just started to learn the skills. And if
Yeah.
I was ever in lack of a skill or in doubt, I felt like there was people around that I could actually ask for guidance and mentoring, which is so, so important, I think, when you're building
Yes.
a
100%.
career.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, sometimes it's not always going to work and there are failures along the way. But the
Hmm.
important thing to remember is that you always learn from those failures. A
Hmm.
failure is not always a bad thing because it can give you things that you need to know and that you need to learn for next time, right?
100%. I think something that I have only shared recently publicly was that, this whole quitting uni, or like having the feeling that I'm so burned out, and
Mhm.
now you've accumulated debt, for school that you're not going to finish, and there's expectations from your family and so on. I did feel like a proper failure. It wasn't like
I'm
a
sorry to
glossy career path for the longest time. It wasn't like I
say.
didn't really know if this is going to work out or anything. And for the longest time, I also didn't make money, to be honest.
I
And
think
it was,
that's a very common thing in the music industry as well. It's that not knowing and not making money for quite a long time. I think that's quite common, isn't it? To build your name and to build that reputation and network, because I think it really does make a difference.
yeah. And I think that's also, even though I wasn't making any money or not enough money to sustain myself, I would take every opportunity to
Yes.
talk about my work, even for free. I did take opportunities to travel, even for like small fees, and like to be able to exchange with others in the music industry. I mean, that has definitely changed. And I'm more selective with, I guess, like the kind of pro bono or community work I do over the years. But at the same time, I always recommend anybody that is starting out to, not shoot for the stars in terms of fee, but really think about, if I speak at this engagement, or if I have a chance to network with XYZ people, what does it do for my career? Like, what is the gain, not monetary necessarily? What is the gain that I can have in terms of insight, in terms of knowledge, in terms of expertise? And I feel like even after like 10 years in the industry, I feel like there's still so many moments where I'm like, okay, this actually learning moment for me rather than a
Yeah.
job. So I think it's good to evaluate, and you never stop learning. So
So true.
uh,
The industry is always evolving. It's always changing, isn't it? And it's
yeah,
about keeping up with that change.
exactly.
Yeah. And what kind of challenges and barriers have you faced accessing and working in the music and entertainment industry?
I think being such a strong advocate for diversity and awareness, I have sometimes faced that people don't take it as seriously, or because
Mm.
it's not something that is as tangible as you saying like, hey, there's a new cash, payment system, and you pay me and I explain it to you, and that will allow for all your processes to be quicker, right? But what awareness and diversity really is about is a deep introspection, a deep reflection of structures, of hiring, of sustainability, of having this desire of inclusiveness within your
Yeah.
organizations or within the industry at large, right? And so it's a little bit abstract. I think people feel like it's not necessarily important, and especially in times where there are, let's say, recession, like after COVID, like a lot of venues, a lot of parts of the industry are still struggling. Even the touring parts are not back to what they used to be, right?
Yeah.
So there's this sense of, do we actually need to talk about awareness, diversity, equity, inclusion at the moment? Isn't that something that we need to do later, right? I think
Mhm.
that's definitely something that I've been facing more lately.
Right.
And then I think also, so once you are at a point where you have expertise, and like me, you've been an industry advocate, you've done all your panels, you've done, your free consultations, and then you get to a point where, like me, you're opening up your own consultancy or your business, and then you tell people, hey, my expertise costs X amount. People be like, how dare you? Like, and I
Right.
feel like sometimes that's particularly, I don't know if that's particularly because I'm a woman or because I'm a Black woman, but it does happen sometimes that people
100% agree.
either want to renegotiate fees or don't want to pay at all, or don't want to pay after you've delivered a service. Like this is definitely something that I feel like the industry is still somehow struggling with.
Right.
Um, and I don't know how it is for my male peers, to be honest. Like maybe this is a overall thing, or maybe is at times, but like I've experienced it quite a few times
Yeah.
since I started my business, and it's quite frustrating, to be honest.
That's a really
Uh,
good point, because it's like there's no transparency, is there? There's no one shares with you the fees that they charge, or the fees that they're taking. So it kind of leaves you in this kind of whole way of thinking, how much do I charge? How much am I worth? And it's
yes,
difficult, isn't it? When you're, especially when you're from a disadvantaged or underrepresented community, to feel
yeah,
valued in the first place, let alone valued financially. So I think
yeah.
that's also another thing to look at. So thank you for highlighting that.
I think, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. For me, what has helped is like leaning on other women of color, to be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
particularly Black women in my circle. I have, asked them about their fees, asked them also about how they come to conclusions of their fees. They think about the years they've put in, the education that they've put in. They think about downtime, especially as a freelancer. You can't just be charging what it takes you to be present that day, like I need a day or two sometimes to recover
And
from,
there as well,
say,
right? Yeah.
intense workshops to talk about racism in music industry. Like it takes energy,
Yeah.
and the days after I might not be able to work or deliver at the same level,
Yeah.
and all these things need to be factored in. So I can just encourage, especially women in the industry, to exchange. Just be open about it. Ask your questions. And the more transparent you are, the more transparent usually people around you are.
Mm.
And I've shared one-on-one with people exactly how much I charge, or like, how I negotiate. I've shared contracts just to be like, I had the privilege of others doing the same for me. And I
Yeah.
think if we do that for others, we're starting to actually get somewhere.
Yeah.
We're actually
Meaning
dismantling
change.
kind of
Yeah.
the what that sense of in transparency. It's just getting lifted. It's not mystical. And yeah.
And that's another thing that I do see with a lot of job advertisements as well, is they'll never put the actual amount that they're going to pay you. So sometimes you're thinking, okay, shall I go for this job? Shall I not? Do I know how much it's going to pay? And I think that's also another thing. So having that transparency would definitely make it a more equitable and fair industry.
Mhm.
People would be able to
Mhm.
know if it's worthwhile or not, right?
100%. I think what's funny is like that, you as a applicant, even if you're like trying to get into employment in any industry, having to ask almost like back almost for the company to give you, notice about the salary is like, it seems like it's not a fair transaction. Like I'm working and you pay me. That's the transaction, you know, and based on that, I can make a informed decision if we are matched or not. There's obviously other factors. I feel like monetary factors is one of many other factors that can play a role if you're the right person for a job or not.
Mhm.
But ultimately, and on a basic level, the exchange is I have expertise that you need, and you're gonna pay me for it. So, like hiding it is not very equitable and inclusive, as you already said.
Yeah.
It's and it puts particularly marginalized people and women at a disadvantage,
Yeah.
right?
Under more
Because they
pressure.
don't, yeah, there's studies that show that they have issues asking for what they deserve. They're more easily gonna accept fees that are below what they should be having, and so on and so forth. So um that's definitely a big issue, and I usually say, like, if you think about a fee, add another 20%, and then maybe you're getting close to what a guy would charge.
Well, thank you for sharing that as well. So that's a good thing to remember. And how
Yeah.
do you think that that's impacted you and your career, having this uncertainty and this lack of transparency and this unfair working kind of environment that you have to face? Has that
Mm.
affected you and impacted you in any way?
Yeah, I think one thing about me is I don't know where this comes from, but being in advocacy for so long, I have detached from this notion of unfairness a little bit.
Mm.
Of course, it's unfair, right? But like there's a sense of the world is not a fair place, right? And it just makes me unhappy if I if I constantly think everybody's against me, it's just gonna make me miserable, right?
Mhm.
So I think of my career and also maybe the times that I was undercharged or, you know, that wasn't the best experience as actually as just learning experiences. Like I won't make the same mistakes twice, right? So
Yeah.
all the things that have happened, all the money that I might have lost out on, I feel like these are moments that you can actually grow,
I
that you
love
can learn
that.
from.
I
And
love,
then I've never had a feeling of like I didn't receive. I think I receive when I'm supposed to receive. There's a bit of spirituality in there as well.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
consider myself a spiritual person, but like I just don't, I like I want to reject that notion of people have that kind of power over my life, you know? Like you doing something, you saving $100, let's say, it's not gonna do anything for me. You know what I mean? Like in the end, I won't remember. It's more about how people have treated me that I will remember. You know, it's not so much about the money, really, in the end. It's more about the knowledge that was shared, the connections, and so on and so forth, right? I've made bad experiences, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
But I really just refuse that notion of people having that kind of power over me. Like, if you know, I want to be in music industry, I want to do this and that. And there's days that you're gonna cuss people out, you know, or like, you know, sit
yeah,
in bed and cry or whatever.
yeah.
Ultimately, you know, you shouldn't give people that kind of power. If you feel like you're being underpaid, think about, okay, what can I do to up my expertise or to get my profile sharpened, you know? Which conferences do I have to attend or to speak on? Like I'm big on manifestation. Like I
Okay.
do manifest once a year. I say, okay, I want to do this event or this I want to speak at X event or whatever. And usually it comes to fruition, you know?
Yeah, that's really good because I do the same thing and I actually managed to achieve everything that I wrote down. So I do it every year. At the beginning of every year, I write down what I want to achieve, like my
Yeah,
main points.
help.
And yeah, it's really amazing what you can achieve when you set your mind to something.
I think it's like what happens with manifestations is that basically subconsciously you do little things that will lead to that actually coming to fruition, right? Like it's not, I don't think it's like some sort of sorcery or magic, although there's maybe a little bit of that in there as well. But I think subconsciously, if you set yourself a goal, let's say I want to speak at a conference X, right? You're gonna maybe connect more with people on LinkedIn that are adjacent, right? You're gonna be you maybe gonna research and like postings, and maybe you're gonna also post something that people from the industry would see, and that will lead to connections, maybe even like also on a very like basic level without you even noticing, right? And I don't think I've made like huge like efforts strides as be like, yeah, reaching out to people, harassing them about me wanting to do something with them or something. That's not really my style, but
I think it's about values as well, isn't it? It's about having the right
yeah,
values and goals because I think if we align with the same people with the same values and goals, we can make much more impact, can't we?
definitely.
Yeah.
You know, it's also being explicit about their values. It's being explicit about your integrity. Like
Yes.
I'm a human first, you know.
Yeah.
There's a strong sense of justice and like social justice
Yeah.
instilled in me because of
Okay.
maybe also
From your
my
background
parents'
and
story.
upbringing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So for me, even if I say life is not fair or, you know, you can't expect especially business to be like just to you all the time, even
Yeah.
if I know that, you know, that's that realism that comes into
Yeah.
play. Like
Yeah.
I still aspire for everybody to, you know,
Have
be
big
treated
dreams.
equally.
And
Yeah,
have big dreams because, like we said earlier, I think it's also about believing in yourself and having that passion and that dedication and just keep going. Because I think that's also another thing that's sometimes I've struggled at times myself, but I've also know that this is my passion, this is my love, this is what I really enjoy doing. And I think if you follow your heart, then you can always achieve and you can always dream big and get there because life is what you make it, right?
it definitely is. I think what you're speaking to is that resilience, you know, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes as people of color, as Black people, as people from marginalized communities, we give others so much power over our thinking, you
Mhm.
know? And I feel like the work that we can do is like heal ourselves, set ourselves goals, you know, and use this kind of rejections and, you know, emotions, and to like really look at you like you're thriving regardless of people actually putting up barriers in your life,
Yeah.
you know. You're like still achieving, you know, you're still somebody. Nobody can take that away from you, you know. And that doesn't change because you might have to adjust career, or you might have to change location,
Yeah.
or you know. And I think I understand that not everybody has the resources or like the abilities, or you know, is in the right setting to have that kind of mindset always. I understand that, but like it does help trying. And I know that some people say, oh, it's toxic positive. It's not. It's really not about toxic positivity. I'm a very realistic person,
Yeah.
but for me to constantly aspire and to believe that there is great projects ahead, you know. I don't think the best thing is behind me. I always think the best thing is before me, you know.
Mm.
And that really, really helps you not, you know, not having any resentment also towards the industry, you
I
know,
think
just
that's some great advice there. And I don't think there's anyone in specific or anyone that you can blame. I just think sometimes, again, it is systems, it is the way that things are set up, but people are out there to change. And I think it's about speaking up and also about highlighting the issues that people do struggle with and those
Mhm.
barriers so that we can make that change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like choosing to be an advocate and like somebody that sheds light on the structural barriers and wants to talk about it and wants to start a dialogue and has learned to not be like accusatory, but like really be like, you know, engaging in that dialogue, you know, and believing in that bringing us further. Um, I can really just underline that, you know, like to focus so much on the things that are wrong, I think is hindering us particularly sometimes. Focus on the great solutions and ideas, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
will help us in general. Like when I think about the state of the world in that sense, you know, it is easy to feel hopelessness, but like you can change things in small, in your surrounding, you know, in your team, in your company, in your family, in
Yeah.
your whatever. There's options and opportunities, you know, and you should just be like, speak your truth, and you know, lead with generosity, you know. And
Others and help others as well, because I think it's really important to not, because I think there is a lot of egos in the industry as well, and it's not just about me or it's not just about my community, it's also about all the other communities as well that are in this
mm,
position as me, because I think if we all work together, we're all going to make so much more of a difference, and also we're going to get something out of it and learn from each other. So to me it's like a win-win situation, really.
yeah, I think so too. Like the exchange is really what you know, what makes the industry. I feel like I have this conversation more with Flinta, like with women, women X. But I personally, in my career, have seen the perceptive of guys change regarding, you know, the work that I do or the things I talk about, you know,
Yeah.
just by staying close, you know, by not giving up, by bringing it up over and over and over again, you know,
Yeah.
eventually they're like,
It,
okay, she doesn't mean me. It's not an attack on me personally, but like, and I think it helps, like, just stick around for the magic, for the changes.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So, what kind of things would you like to see improve over the next couple of years regarding equality, diversity, inclusion?
I think there's still like discrepancies when it comes down to bookings, you know, who's booked, and not only bookings, but really like the structures behind the labels, the platforms that artists can actually like use. You know, the code is biased, you know. How can we actually make sure that not only has everybody access, but like that the technologies that we are using in the industry are also going to be equitable and diverse and, you know, inclusive in that sense. You know, we see it, you know, currently during conflicts in Israel, Palestine, or whatever, you know, you're asking about different sides of the conflicts, the responses are very, very different, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
knowing that the code and the technologies also might be biased, like how can we as people in the industry ensure that that doesn't happen for our industry, right?
Yeah.
Like
For future generations as well.
exactly, like how can we make sure that the biases that are there that we're trying to, you know,
Right.
work on, that they are going to be going down and not up by
Yeah.
technology that is biased. You know, there's very interesting books already, like regarding data and, let's say, invisible women. There's a book called The Invisible Women, and it talks about how the world has been set up for men, right? And that a lot of the data that has been collected over the years is
Amen.
also set out about men. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we factor in other intersectional factors like race, like gender identities that
Yeah.
might have not been as prominent over the last 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, right? But are now here, you know, and we're
Yeah.
talking about them. So, like, how can we ensure that the technologies and lanes that we're building in the industry are actually made for everybody, you know? Um,
I love,
and yeah, I
thank you.
think that's a big one.
Yeah, that is a really big one, actually. No one's mentioned that, but that's so true. So, so true. It's about the systems and how they
Yeah,
operate and making sure that the systems are fair to support the people that are coming through them. I think that's fantastic. Do
yeah,
you
exactly.
do you
If
think
AI is replacing us, right,
yeah,
then
well,
we
yeah,
need to make sure that AI is not going to be like an even worse version, you know,
yeah,
of us humans, you
well,
know.
that's so true. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
true. And do you think there's any cultural and age differences that affect the progress of equality and inclusion in the music industry? Do you think that's another issue?
I think there's always going to be like changes between generations, right? Like I'm 34 and
Yeah,
I see a difference in how people talk about these things in when they're Gen Z, right? Or when they're boomers in that sense, right? So, and there's also this where we talk about these things. Like I feel like, you know, again, the way that messages are being delivered, maybe I'm doing more podcasts and then you have Gen Z doing more learning on TikTok, you know, and it's not better or worse. It's just you have to go with times, you know. You People will always have different opinions and they are not single, you know, like they're not singular in that sense. There's a trillion things happening at the same time, right? And all these things shape opinions. And there's little influence, I think, that we have. I think we need to be accepting and hear the generations out
yeah,
and then try
definitely.
to find consensus on it, you know. And I think that's going to be tough, but on a personal level, I think we need to find ways that it's not just about identity, but really about the connection,
Yeah,
you know. It's not
definitely.
just about identity or identity politics, but it's really about the music, the connection, and all of these
Engagement.
things. You know?
Yeah,
So
and
how can we get
engagement.
closer together, you know? What is the commonalities we have? And I think we do have a lot, you know, but if we focus on the things that distinguish us, it might be difficult also between the
It
generations, you
brings
know.
it segregates us more, doesn't it? Rather than focusing on what brings us together. I think
Yeah,
focusing on what brings us all together and what are our common grounds, because then we can
yes,
work on those rather than our differences.
very true, yeah.
Yeah,
But obviously, if you say it, like even me saying it, sometimes I'm like, man, you sound so worn out, you know, like I mean, like it's like you're preaching world peace, but like really, isn't it really the essence of us being humans and being together and
yeah,
being in the industry is like connectedness through music,
yeah.
through passion, and yeah, I think
And
that's another big one.
thank you. So if the viewers want to find you or find out anything about the work that do you have you got anything you can share with us where they can find you on Instagram or LinkedIn or any of the projects that you're doing at the moment?
Sure. So I have an Instagram that's called Lu Holy Mary, Lu Holy Mary altogether. And I have a website called lemlemculture.com. So if you're a company in the cultural industry in the nighttime economy and you you want some consultation, you're looking for, assistance of how to hire in the future, or any other transformational processes that you're going through at the moment and want some assistance, I'm here to guide and assist. lemculture.com.
I'll leave all of that in the description box below as well. So if anyone wants to contact you, feel free to make your own contact from the description box. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming along today, for sharing your views and your goals, and all the amazing work that you do as well, because it's been really, really interesting, and you've come up with some great answers to the questions that I asked you. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, Saskia. And I really hope that somebody can take something from this conversation, and reach out with any questions that you have. And I think that's
right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Where's the stop button here? Where's it gone? Oh. Don't know where the stop button's gone now for the record. It's just disappeared on me. There we go.